Hey guys, we're going to be taking a look at the ART Tube MP Studio, but we're going to be using it for its intended purpose, which is microphones. We've already ran this thing with a bass guitar, and if you want to check out that video, click on that. It's actually really awesome for things other than microphones, like electric bass guitar and acoustic guitar. In the bass guitar video, I also go a little bit into what a preamp is and what a preamp does. For this video, we're just gonna get straight into it. It is a miniature direct box type of preamp that you can use for microphones. It's got a tube inside of it, and it sounds really warm. It's got a nice warm characteristic tone, and it kind of brings life to a lot of microphones that I've ran through it. It's made out of metal, which is fantastic for its price, and though it's not meant to be on a pedal board, both because the input and outputs are along the top and there's no foot switch, it's shaped like a direct box and it's small enough to fit along a pedal board, so I put one on mine sometimes. Inside the box, it comes with an AC power adapter, and they insist that you use the one that it came with, and if you need to replace it, make sure that it's a 9-volt AC adapter, not a DC adapter. It also comes with some pre-cut rubber inside the user manual to stick along the bottom of the preamp for desktop placement. At the heart of the unit is a 12AX7 tube, which provides the warmth, and the tube is interchangeable. You can replace it if it goes out after months of use, or you can use different brand tubes for subtle tonal differences if you're into that kind of thing. Along the top are knobs and controls for the preamp. Input volume for your mic or instrument is on the left. There's a positive 20 dB gain switch for line level microphones and instruments which are really quiet. Some acoustic guitars would probably benefit from this. There's a 48 volt phantom power for condenser microphones, which will sometimes require it. Next to that is a phase reverse switch for when you're using multiple microphones and you get something where one microphone is a little bit farther away than another microphone and the sound is a bit delayed. You can remedy the situation by switching that on. The preamp also has a built-in limiter, which is a nice addition. The limiter keeps the dynamic peaks of the input volume steady. And finally on the right is the overall output volume of the pedal. There's an LED which indicates if you're clipping when it turns red and stays green otherwise. The VU meter is a nice touch and gives you an analog visual of the volume of the preamp. It fits with the vintage tube style of the unit. The preamp does have XLR and 1/4-inch input and output options. Though you can't use two instruments or two microphones inside the unit at the same time, you are able to mix and match XLR and 1/4-inch input. So if you've got a 1/4-inch and you've got only another XLR available like I do, then you can run in with a 1/4-inch and out with an XLR, or vice versa. If you've got a microphone with an XLR input and you need to go out with a 1/4-inch into your interface, then you are able to do that, along with using both XLRs and the 1/4-inch inputs and outputs together. Right now I've got the MXL V67 going straight into my Line 6 UX2 USB interface. This is fine, and the microphone sounds great. I wouldn't really have to do much from here. I can rely on the 48 volts that I'm getting from the UX2. I can rely on something like Logic to add a compressor and an EQ after recording some vocals and kind of even things out at the end. The interface would be acting as my preamp, and the DAW would be acting as my post-processing software. Now, if I didn't have these tools, this microphone actually wouldn't work, because a condenser microphone usually needs 48 volts of power. So if I wasn't able to go through the UX2 and I just ran straight into my computer with an XLR somehow, I still need something to power it. Usually that interface or a mixer would do the job. The ART Tube preamp is going to be not only providing the external power that this would need, but it makes it so that you can run into a mixer or an interface or anything really that could take this microphone, and you'll have the power plus the tube warmth that would be provided by the preamp, along with a few other options that you don't have on board the microphone, such as raising and lowering the volume and adding the built-in limiter that's on the preamp. So now I've got the V67 going through the preamp, and I've also got that running into Logic Pro 10. Right off the bat, I do have a little bit more of a warmer characteristic, and the frequency response is a tad bit better. But the real cool thing here is that I can now adjust the volume live. I can just do it on board the preamp, so the actual volume of the microphone is gonna go up. I don't have to do it on Logic. The 20 decibel gain, if I actually bring everything, make it flat, and get a little bit more volume right there. If I actually am running just at 12 o'clock here and I just give it a 20 decibel gain, it just gives me just a volume boost right off the bat. So I don't have to do any post-processing. Very little post-processing, because I can get everything right before the fact on the preamp. You'll also notice that I am going in through my XLR and out through quarter inch, which I have mentioned in a different video that you are able to do. That's actually something really cool. I didn't think that this was going to be possible, and I thought that I was going to have to go from XLR to XLR. XLR cables are expensive, and they're very, very, very delicate for some reason. They go out as quickly as possible. I have had quarter inch cables that have lasted years, and I've had more expensive XLR cables go out after a week. I'm really glad that I am able to just narrow it down to a single XLR cable. This preamp package that I have right here is ready to go into a mixing board. It's ready to go into anything that will take a quarter inch input or an XLR input. And you have this the characteristic of the tube inside of here, as well as the 48 volts of phantom power, which I do not need to provide using my UX2 any longer. And you also have a little bit of a decibel gain. Now we're going to try the same thing with this Shure Sm58 microphone. This is a very, very, very popular microphone. It's an industry standard. You'll see this on stages all over the place. If you've ever done anything in music, you've seen this microphone before. This microphone does not require a 48 volt power supply. It doesn't require any external power. It is a dynamic microphone, and because it's a dynamic microphone, it actually makes it suitable for stage use, because it doesn't pick up every little sensitive thing, and it lets you yell into it and throw it around without any problems. And I'm running right into my UX2 without any preamp in the way, and you can probably hear it's not very loud. It's actually it's right. I can see the input is barely picking up anything right now, and there's not very much I can do about that right now, because really those are the only options I have, is going straight into my interface, and I can record this, and maybe after the fact I can add a compressor, and I can maybe boost it and all that kind of stuff. But let's try running a preamp through this. My volume is higher, so I can actually hear myself, and I can give it the plus 20 decibel, which this microphone really needs. But see, as you can see, I have it sounding pretty close to the condenser microphone. So this microphone, which is $100, it's a dynamic microphone, so it is extremely versatile, and it's used in almost every application. Ran through a preamp, is given a lot more options, and is given a lot more dynamic sound, because you can now turn it up and down like an active microphone, along with the warmth of the tube, of course. $40 for a preamp kind of fixes a lot of the problems a lot of people have with microphones being too weak, because when I'm speaking into a dynamic microphone, it's picking up a line level of volume, so it's not going to be very loud. And the interface, like I've said in the previous video, is not an amplifier. It's not going to make it louder. It's not going to take the signal and amplify it like a guitar amp or a bass amp would. It's just going to take the straight signal and run it through into my studio monitors. The preamp it makes it independent from the interface, and the interface is now just my sole USB connection into my computer, but I can actually run this preamp into a mixing board, into a live situation. More importantly, if you're running into a recording software and you only have one microphone, but you want some studio quality vocals, this dynamic microphone ran through a preamp will give you something that's very close, which you'll have to do very little tweaking after the fact to get good results. Lastly, let's check out the SM57. Right now, I've kind of got it going through the preamp without the plus 20 decibels. You can see that, or you can hear that it's very, very thin sounding, and that's something about this microphone. It's made to take a lot of volume, so you can use this as a guitar microphone on stage and in the studio, but you can also use it as a vocal microphone, and if you want to sort of boost the signal here, you can just add that 20 decibels, and there you go. Now you've got a nice usable microphone sound coming from the Shure SM57, which is also a very versatile microphone that you're going to see all over the place. I have known this to be a little bit more quiet than the SM58. It also picks up directly forward, right straight forward, instead of more from the side to the side, because it is trying to block out all these sounds from the side and really get what is coming directly straight into it. A great dynamic microphone that does not need the 48 volts like the SM58, but really, really, really does benefit from the 20 decibels that you're getting of gain from the device itself. And then from here, I can of course also go higher up and get as loud as possible. And then, you know, I'm not even clipping. That's how loud I can get this. I can actually not even clip. So it is incredibly apparent that running a preamp in between your microphone and whatever you've got, whether it be a mixer or computer, is pretty ideal, because it does kind of give you a little bit more control over what you can do, and it can kind of enhance the sound of a microphone a little bit. Think about a preamp just like an amplifier for your microphone. If a guitarist or a bass player runs into their amplifiers, when you're running into a PA, essentially that mixer is using its own built-in preamplifier. If you've got a preamp like this and you're running into a recording software, you've got your own amplifier, just like the bass guitar and guitars have their amps on stage. Bass and guitar do have their own preamps in the studio. But the real plus factor with this particular unit is that it's got a tube inside of it, and things that usually have valves in them are not very cheap, because they're just not very cheap to make. And the only reason that you would even want something like this in there is for the tone characteristic. There's no real reason. It's not efficient to use tubes anymore. In fact, televisions don't use tubes anymore. Computer monitors don't use tubes anymore. Everybody kind of moved out of that market except for audiophiles. Audio is the one true thing that sounds really, really good when it comes to vintage tubes. And so the fact that this is under $40 is a huge, huge plus. And the fact that it can turn almost any microphone into a tube microphone for a fraction of the cost is a huge benefit of something like this. The fact that I can actually run a bass guitar through this and go into my computer, or I can even, as an emergency, bring this as a direct box, is a huge added benefit, because I love versatility. And there's preamps for bass, there's preamps for guitars, and there's vocal preamps, but you can try to use a different preamp for something else and see what kind of sound you get. And when you run acoustic guitars and electric basses through this, you do get a warm tube characteristic that it is designed with. So I recommend something like this if you're recording podcasts, you're doing any kind of vocal work, if you're doing any kind of video work where you do need a microphone. I'm using a USB microphone right now, so I don't really need a preamp. There is a built-in preamp that goes with those kind of microphones, but if you've got a traditional XLR microphone and you just have one, you can run it through this, and it will, you can go and do a compression later on, or you can go and add the EQ and kind of make it sound a little bit better, but you don't have to get really expensive equipment or microphones. You just have to have something like this, and in the way you could run straight into a interface, or you can run into a mixer and be on your way. The only things that I can suggest are, like I said on the bass guitar video, is I wish that the input and output were not on the top. I wish that they were on the sides, because I do like to put this on a pedal board sometimes, and my daisy chain, it kind of conflicts with it. The daisy chain is kind of opposite. Also, I wish that Art would make a huge line of products. They do have a lot of different preamps that you can use for microphones, and there are a lot of different tube preamps that they have, but I wish that they would make accessories, and that they would make one specifically for bass or for guitars. 'Cause with the price in mind and the quality of the device, it is a huge plus to have something like this, and I would definitely go out and grab something that was specifically made for bass, or something that had extra channels on it, so that I could actually use it on the road, or I can get some added benefits. So that was the Art Tube MP Studio. If you guys have any questions on this, please ask down below. Remember to follow, like, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff, and I will catch you guys in the next video.